everything we know about Ukraine's Flamingo missile. There are a lot of ways to send a message to Moscow. Some people use diplomatic cables, others use Twitter. Ukraine uses a cruise missile named after wading birds, and apparently they've just unveiled the baddest bird in the flock, the Flamingo. And trust me, this thing is a real neck stretcher. Let's talk about Ukraine's new 3,000-kilometer, 1-ton warhead cruise missile. Yes, it's real. Yes, Russia's defense bloggers are sweating. And yes, the entire story is so on brand for Ukraine in 2025 that you can practically hear the Eurobeat remix in the background. So what is this missile and why is everyone talking about it? Hey friends, Wes here, multi-branch veteran, law grad, and recovering tech journalist. And the Flamingo is a subsonic long-range cruise missile reportedly capable of hitting targets across European Russia, possibly as far as the Urals if you really want to ruin some oligarch's vacation. It's got a declared range of 3,000 kilometers, a warhead tipping the scales at over 1,000 kilograms, or as we say in military terms, enough to make a Russian oil refinery see Jesus. And it's the crown jewel of Kyiv-based upstart Fire Point. But wait, why call it the Flamingo, one of the least threatening birds on the planet? Actually, funny story, the first iterations of the missile ended up pink after a factory error, earning the now stuck nickname. Imagine the Russian soldier's tombstone. Here lies Dmitry, killed by a flamingo. It has a fiberglass body for radar shyness, AI-25 turbofan engines built in Zaporizhia because if you're going to mass produce a weapon, do it somewhere that makes Russian generals break out in hives, and satellite inertial navigation for guidance. The engine sits on top of the fuselage, which, as every missile nerd will note, is a loving homage to Germany's old V-1 and the Soviet Tu-141. Now, here's the real kick in the nuts. All of this was built in 9 months. In defense acquisition terms, that's about the time it takes the Pentagon to pick a font for a memo. And can we all agree that serif fonts suck balls? If even half of the stats are real, this is a paradigm shift. Now, this all sounds almost too good to be true, and that's the line every defense journalist is dancing on. Fire Point, the company behind Flamingo, was basically a nobody in Ukraine's defense industry until this year. The management team comes from film, not military engineering. One official admitted, quote, "I was skeptical until I saw the missiles." Join the club, my friend. There are also rumors, delicious, spicy rumors, about whether the Flamingo is really 100% Ukrainian or if there's a little more imported expertise in this bird than Kyiv lets on. We know the Emirati FP5 shown at IDEX 2025 in Abu Dhabi looks suspiciously similar. Is it licensed? Is it stolen? Is it parallel development? Fire Point, for obvious reasons, won't say. What we do know is that over 90% of the final assembly is happening in Ukraine, at sites so secret even Google Maps pleads the fifth. So, let's get technical. Here's what we can confirm or reasonably infer. The warhead is 1,000 kilograms. Yes, that's more than double a Tomahawk and just about the weight of a Lada with 2 Russians in the trunk. Total weight is 6,000 kilograms. That's 6 tons of surprise. The range is 3,000 kilometers, as I've said. If Moscow's feeling smug, flamingos are here to remind them that geography is a suggestion. And the speed is Mach 0.75. Not supersonic fast, but like your favorite B-52, it's the one you never see coming until your oil refinery is on fire. As for guidance, we have satellite plus inertial nav. If you can jam both, congratulations, you just invented Russian Starlink. And the lineage has obvious nods to the Emirati FP5, which is itself a remix of the Soviet Tu-141. And only in 2025 do you see Ukraine using Soviet-inspired tech to bomb Soviet factories in Russia. But what about any US inspiration? Well, in late 2024, President Zelensky reportedly made a top-secret pitch to the White House for Tomahawk cruise missiles. He got a hard no from the Biden administration, so like any good Slavic engineer, he looked at the Tomahawk's blueprint, took a sip of coffee, and said, how hard can it be? The Tomahawk, America's analog cruise missile granddaddy workhorse, packs about 450 kilograms of warhead, 1,600-kilometer range, and is so reliable, it's almost boring. The Flamingo, at least on paper, more than doubles the range and payload, but the core DNA, the turbojet engine, the low-level terrain-hugging profile, and the modular guidance should be very familiar to anyone who's ever watched a tomahawk strike on CNN. Ukraine also borrowed some old-school German V1 inspiration. The engine-on-top design isn't just for show, it actually helps the missile stay stealthier and harder to spot on radar. At least, that's the theory. When your heat signature is coming from above the body, it does mask some of that super hot exhaust as it's coming directly out of the engine. Now, let's be real. Building a missile is one thing. Making it work under fire is another. The Flamingo is big, climbs steeply at launch, and in theory, could be easier to spot for Russian radar. The counter? Well, quantity. Ukraine's doctrine in this case is all about mirroring Russia's massed drones and missiles and decoys, Operation Spider's Web style, so Russia's defenses get overwhelmed and something slips through. A few Flamingos get swatted, but one hits a refinery. That's still a win. Russian mill bloggers are unusually tight-lipped, and that alone is a sign of respect or existential dread. Some are calling for round-the-clock air patrols with Su-35s just to hunt flamingos. Others are busy searching for Fire Point secret factories instead of doom-scrolling on Telegram. But there are some corruption rumors we need to address. Fire Point's rapid rise has come with a side order of controversy. Ukraine's anti-corruption watchdog, NABU, is probing Fire Point over whether they inflated numbers or leveraged political connections to get government cash. The firm's founder comes from the film industry, not military manufacturing, and their contracts are shrouded in more secrecy than a Russian casualty report. On paper, Fire Point produced $320 million worth of drones for the government in 2024 and is now ramping up to a billion-dollar-plus business in 2025. Staff went from 18 to 2,200 employees in a year. Are these numbers real? Maybe. Are the drones and missiles working? Well, yeah, so far, Russia's oil refineries aren't laughing. And the big question, will Flamingo change the course of the war? The answer is yes. Ukraine finally has a tool to strike deep, repeatedly, and at a price point Moscow can't match. Russia's missile factories, oil depots, and every key air base are suddenly in the splash zone. But it's not just about the missile, it's about Ukraine's new model of fast, flexible defense tech. In a world where Pentagon projects take decades, Ukraine built a 3,000-kilometer cruise missile in the time it takes the U.S. Army to run a single procurement tabletop exercise. That's the future of war. And for all the skepticism, there's something uniquely Ukrainian about naming your flagship missile after a flamingo, painting it pink, and building it in a factory run by former filmmakers and concrete artists. So is the Flamingo a world beater, a bluff, or just the opening act for the next phase of the drone and missile war? Well, time will tell, but if I were running a Russian oil refinery, I'd be checking the skies for pink birds. That's it for today, my friends. Subscribe for more analysis, real talk, and a healthy dose of sarcasm at Russia's expense. Remember, subscribing to Real Humans on YouTube lets YouTube know that you prefer people over AI slop. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.